Welcome to episode 77 of the Forward from 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. Today I'm interviewing a financial coach from Canada who has some great advice for seasoned citizens about ways they can leave a financial legacy for their children and grandchildren. Ironically, it's more about advice than actual gifts of money. Joel Bromley operates Bromley Financial Coaching with his wife Caitlin. He is not yet 50, but after being more than $2 million in debt while raising 4 children, God got his attention and showed him a strategy for financial management. He used that strategy to get out of debt and build a stronger financial framework for his family. He is passionate about sharing that framework with others. Joel understands that seasoned citizens want to leave a financial legacy to their children and grandchildren. The good news is that everyone can leave such a legacy by actually talking about finances, investments, giving, and spending habits. It's that type of seasoned advice that comes from experience, whether good or bad, which helps younger generations develop the financial muscle they need to avoid pitfalls common to many Americans today. The ability to do life better gives families more choices and a lot more financial breathing room. Joel has a lot of good advice, so this interview is longer than most, but worth listening to and making notes. To tell us about his strategy and to offer advice on leaving a genuine financial legacy, please welcome Joel Bromley with Bromley Financial Coaching to the show. Thanks for joining me today, Joel. I appreciate your time. Financial aspects of retirement are things that are first and foremost on a lot of people's minds. So tell us a little bit about your organization and what it can do for people.
Yeah. So I am maybe closer to retirement than I look. In my W-2, I have maybe 7-ish years, 7 to 9 years left. I am closer than I look. But Caitlin and I, so we do this together, my wife and I, and we started this kind of on a journey of our own. We had 4 rental properties that we owned. We were $2 million in debt. We made good money, but yeah, I know, right? Like this, it's just saying that makes my heart skip a little bit. And the whole real estate thing, we could go into a whole nother conversation about that. But yeah, we're $2 million in debt. We had consumer debt as well. We have 4 kids that at the time were like under the age of 5. Both of us had full-time jobs and 17 tenants between the 4 properties. And it was a lot. We were just on this hamster wheel. We were just spinning our wheels on everything. And so we decided something needed to be different. And we actually felt God say that this real estate plan was your plan. It wasn't my plan. It's not a bad plan, but it's not my plan. We set out and sold 3 of the 4. The 4th was our primary residence, and we had an apartment in the basement, a secondary unit in the basement. So for 10 years, we kept that apartment and recently have gotten rid of that. Our kids, the oldest is 14 now, so we needed more space. We've reclaimed, and I'm in the process of finishing that. But we just set off on this journey to just do life better and give ourselves more choices, to give us more breathing room. And we really talked about and decided what was most important to us. We wanted to be content. We felt like we were always chasing for more, and contentment it was something we were chasing after and never achieving. We're in Canada. Beauty of what we do though is that financial principles are financial principles no matter where you are in the world. We don't teach or sell investments but financial principles apply no matter where you are and no matter how old you are. And we did that and started with the Ramsey, but then we felt there was a different seat at the table that we could occupy. And so we decided that we were going to go on that route and became financial coaches and developed our own programming and have our own courses and curriculum and stuff like that. So now we are out of debt and we help people figure out what they want in life and how to do that.
What's the name of your company?
We are Bromley Financial Coaching.
And you've been in business since the pandemic?
5 years now, yeah. Yeah, so 2019. So just before the pandemic, we started off, and so have slowly been growing and are continuing to grow. And I believe that God has a hand, a movement that he wants to do through people's money. And I truly believe that although we believe money controls everything, that it's not actually about money. Through our programming and courses, people find out that he wants contentment for us. He wants our hearts, and money is just a tool that we get to use to teach people to do those things. So.
It's important for people to be prepared at every stage in their life. And as they're coming up on their retirement years, there's a lot of focus on the financial aspect of that. And there are a lot of people like myself who have made some poor decisions in the past or had things happen to them where they find themselves in less than desirable financial situations where they've had to start over very late in life and may not have the resources that they want or had hoped to have at this stage. So you can help people prepare for those kind of situations?
Absolutely. There's an aspect to preparing, and with money, investments and those kinds of things, time is all obviously on your side. Our daughter, 9, and she was figuring out on a compound interest calculator the other day, if she put so much money aside per week now, how much she would have when she got to retirement age, whatever that is, because I think that's different for everybody. I think I was raised that you would retire at 60 or 65 and then do nothing. You rot for the rest of your life. But I think that we all have a mission in life, and especially when we're more experienced and seasoned, like you call it, we have an obligation, I think, a calling to pass on to younger people and older people our experiences. And I think that our experiences are for other people as well. But so there's that aspect of preparing for it. And if you haven't prepared for it, I won't call them tricks, but I think there's different mindsets and behaviors that we need to work through, habits that we need to work through to be able to have, because I think what we're let down by is our expectations, right? Like you said, we thought we were going to have a certain amount of money when we retired. We thought we were going to be able to do these things when we were at a certain age. And when we get caught up on what those certain things were, that's when our disappointment sets in. So if we'll use your example of RVing. I know you love RVing and camping and those kinds of things. If your idea back when you were younger was to travel the world, if you're not of the means to be able to go to Paris and Portugal and all the different places, you're going to be disappointed, and you can live in that for the rest of your life and live in resentment and regret.
Sure.
Or what does that look like in a different way? So when we start looking at different ways of doing something similar, we start thinking about why we wanted to do that thing in the first place, and then working through how we can achieve the same thing and achieve the same benefit by doing it in just a different way.
Retirement is not an age. Everybody says
Absolutely.
You've got to wait until I'm 67, or now it keeps going up and up and up. But when you're financially independent and you have the resources, you can retire at any time. And then what's the thing? What do you do? Because that's the one thing that really irritates me about financial planners, is because it's all about accumulating money. And what do you do once you accumulate the money? You know what I mean? We're not going to travel now because we're saving for our retirement, and then someday never arrives because somebody gets sick or injured.
Absolutely. And that gets cut short, or it doesn't happen, or oh man, I've been watching the stock market lately just a little bit. They're not crazy about it, but we have investments, and it's just, but at the same time, it's just one of those things that happens. So if you're concentrated on a number, that can change and that can be disappointing. But when you're focused on an outcome or what you're hoping to achieve, or really, I think at the heart of things, we're all just wanting a choice. We don't want to be told this is what you have, or we don't want to feel like we're being told this is what you have to do, because so your outcome is less than what you thought. So therefore you're stuck down here now. Really what I want, and I think what most people want, is just to be able to have the choice. I want to be able to have the choice. I don't necessarily want a car, house, or whatever the thing is, the trip, but I want to be able to have the choice to take my family on the thing, or to be able to give them that experience, or I want to have that choice. I think that's really what kind of boils down the heart of the issue, is we want the choices, and it feels like you said, everybody's focused on that number.
That's right. Now, one of the things that I found interesting about your daughter going ahead and calculating the effect of compound interest is that we as seasoned citizens can work with our grandchildren and our kids to make sure that we are giving them, what would you say, a generational financial legacy, right? That we're passing down solid money strategies to those kids, because they're not being taught that in school. So they're going to have to be taught by somebody. And they're either taught to go into debt and to finance everything that they need and be the slave to somebody for the rest of their life, or they're taught to do it the right way. How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think we all want to be remembered for something. And I think another thing we chase also is how are we going to be remembered and what's the legacy we're going to leave? Here in Canada, it is, or in Ontario anyway, where I am, it is mandated actually that financial principles be taught in schools, elementary schools specifically. But one of the issues is that not even the teachers know how to do that in their own personal lives. So how do you teach something you're maybe not doing in your personal life? And then the things that they're being taught, I remember our oldest son, I can't remember if it was grade 7 or grade 8, he had taken a test on this personal finance and answered it a way that we would have answered, and he got it wrong. Billy needed to buy a couch or something like that. Should he use his credit card or should he wait? And Noah wrote he should wait and sit on the floor or whatever it was that he wrote, and it was he should have used his credit card for some reason. And so I think it largely depends on the situation, but he got what I would say marked wrong. But I think teaching our kids or grandkids can feel challenging, especially if we haven't been taught. And I'll tell you all of you, that is never too late to learn. My uncle is 93 years old and does banking on his iPhone and sends e-transfers. And he's just a crazy, crazy guy. My Uncle Ron, if you ever watch this, but it's never too late. And what I think we can do by teaching our kids how to manage money properly is to give them a start that maybe we didn't have. I didn't have. I had a desire, but I didn't know how. My parents didn't teach us. But when we teach them how to do it, one, we're learning, and then we're setting them up to go from that starting point on into the future to be able to manage whatever they're making, whatever, if we're fortunate enough to be able to pass something along to them at some point, we're setting them up for success that largely most of their friends will never experience if they didn't have somebody teaching them.
Right. Interesting that you said that they're teaching financial principles in elementary school, because frankly, that is ridiculous. The kids don't have income. They don't have any expenses. This should be mandatory as juniors and seniors in high school, not when you're in middle school, before you even do that. It's not, it just seems like a wasted resource to be going over that in elementary or middle school. But
what I like about it though, Greg, is that when they're learning the small things, like Peyton, 9 years old, working on this compound interest calculator, she doesn't have the income, although she started a snack shack in front of our house on our driveway. We live right across from the elementary school. And our son Emerson did that last year, a couple of years ago, and made $600 in a spring. And so she started yesterday, was her first day, and she made $875 in 15 minutes. That's $35 an hour. And so now she has the background, she has the ideas of what do I do with this money now that I'm getting it. But so you could do it either way. You could have the money and then things, but she has the knowledge. We talk about it all the time. And we even use our own age appropriate. We use our own situation as an example, the decisions and stuff like that, to be able to guide them. And now that she has the income, she knows I'm going to give some of it. I'm going to save some of it. Some of it is so that I can go to wherever, the dollar store, and buy some candy or treat somebody to something. So she has an idea of what to do with it.
That's a good point, is because we can teach our grandchildren how to properly plan their money. Who's going to teach them how to invest if we don't do it, right? They're not going to learn it in any public setting, like a school or anything like that. And I would imagine that most people today don't have an idea on how to properly invest money. So if we can impart on them our own values, that you have to save a certain percentage, you have to give away a certain percentage. You can spend some on things that you want to do, but you should have a financial plan. So it would be important for seasoned citizens to be able to convey that to other people, whether it's their own kids, their neighbors, working people, others in the church. Every church should have a financial planning program like you're offering, I would imagine.
Absolutely. We do have a program called Financially Thriving, and we offer that we started with our church, and from the people that have responded from just our church, they have been able to save and pay off debt to the tune of $58,000 per person from this 6-week program. And it's just amazing to see what God's doing. So that gives a kind of a base level of what God teaches or Jesus teaches in the Bible about finances. and then up and onward from there. And there are other programs, absolutely. But I do believe that it's something that we should, as Christians, we should learn about how to manage, because it's not our money. Mm-hmm. It's a resource that we've been trusted with. And how do we properly manage that resource in a way that honors God, prepares our kids for the future, and is truly to bless other people? It's not necessarily just for our accumulation. We can enjoy stuff as well, but it is honestly it's a tool that we have to bless other people and expand his kingdoms.
A lot of seasoned citizens would like to leave a financial legacy to their grandchildren or their children, and they think they have to dole it out at the end of their lives, when in fact I think you've done some calculations as to what happens if they were to give $2,000 and deposit that into an account for a child on his or her day of birth. What happens 50, 60 years later? Can you go into some of that?
Yeah, so I don't have the calculator right in front of me now, but it would be really easy to Google compound interest calculator and put in $2,000, and then you pick your interest rate. We typically do anywhere from 8 to 12%. 12% is the average of the last 50 years of the S&P 500. People could argue with you, but it's not unrealistic, I'll say. So go 8% if you felt more comfortable with that. But you could very easily in 30 years accumulate $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 just on that amount. If you then decided you're going to contribute $10 a week extra to that, it's just goes up from there to the tune of, if you let it grow into their 60s, $1 million, a couple $1 million, depending on the numbers. And again, I don't have them right in front of me, and your results will vary and all those kinds of things. There's definitely things that you can do that don't take up a lot of. $2,000 isn't a small amount of money, but it's not giving your kids or your grandkids $100,000 off the bat, right? But that can grow over time. And I know that can look different, because giving money to your kids or grandkids can also be a curse too, if you don't teach them how to properly. So you could have all the best intentions in the world and do this all in secret, and then the day of your passing, or even before, if you wanted to watch them enjoy it, give them this money and watch them squander it or get into giant trouble. Or this wasn't an inheritance, but it was a lottery win that I heard somebody go through recently, where they won $250,000 and in a month it was gone. So people aren't taught to properly use the money. Can not be a blessing for sure.
It's a good point. So if we have the ability to give the money, we have the obligation to help the kids understand how to use it to their advantage.
I think so. And
the whole idea of giving $2,000 on the day of their birth and putting it into an account, and then as the kids get older, you can work with them on, here's where your account is right now. Where should we invest this money today? What products do you like to use? You like this skateboard company? Let's see if we can't put some money in that skateboard company and see what happens, and just get them to understand how all that works.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you don't, if they can have control over it when they become of age, 18, 19, and put it into their own accounts. But if they don't understand it, they could just blow it. We heard of somebody the other day that they were adult children with a kid. Their parents, so the grandparents, gave them $20,000 for a 7-year-old to buy a car. And so they're 7. So they're not going to buy a car anytime soon. So that $20,000 in 13 years could grow quite a bit. And if you contributed $10 a month, 20 bucks a week, or whatever it is that you're able to, that can grow exponentially more. But again, if you don't teach them how to manage it when they get control of it, or what it's for, what it could be for later on in the future, what if you were able to grow it to a point where you could retire at age 40, or you had the choice of what you want to for work at age 40 or 50? Like, what a blessing that would be. But again, if you're not taught, or if you don't teach them how to do it, and that can be taught through example, I made bad decisions, and so this is what I learned and pass that on, or these are the decisions that I made and this is how it worked out well, and go through and then do scenario-based stuff like you're talking about, where, okay, what is this staker company? What is their track record? What are they forecasting them to do in the future? What do you like it even? Do you know anything about it? Don't invest in anything you don't know about, right? So we're going to read about this company and see what they're all about. And are they ethical? Are they all these different kinds of things? But we can be so focused on money too and things. What if it's not just that? Do you remember any toys or gifts your grandparents gave you as a kid?
Not really. No, it was
No,
good for a couple of weeks maybe, and then they faded in the distance. Yes.
Yeah, I don't either. I love two of my grandparents, like my mom and dad's parents, they were from overseas, so they would come alternating summers. But we had been adopted grandparents here in Canada, and they had 13 kids, but they loved us just like their own. There was 4 of us. And I don't remember, I'm sure my grandma gave us stuff, but I remember the time she spent with us. I remember the lemon meringue pies. I love lemon meringue pies, and she would make me one for my birthday every year. And yeah, just the time that she spent with us, and just the joy that she had and I learned that you don't have to be related to somebody to love them as much as she did. So I have a special spot in my heart for adopted parents and kids and step parents and stuff like that. It's when you choose to love somebody, I think that's an incredible thing, right? So what's the legacy you're leaving through experience? It doesn't even have to be things, right?
So grandparents should be, or could, finance experiences for their grandchildren more than trinkets. I think they'd remember that far more, especially if they're doing it with the grandkids. I know we financed a big trip to Disney World years ago where we brought both my mom and my wife's mom with us and made it a big family event. And that was one of the most memorable experiences that we've ever had.
And that could never be taken away from you.
Never. Exactly.
You'll remember that forever. And if your kids, did your kids go as well?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they'll remember that forever, the time that they got to spend with you guys and their grandparents, and Disney's a magical place anyways, right? But yeah, so, and we don't do gifts for birthdays anymore. We always do experiences, and that experience can cost next to nothing or can be on the more expensive side. But my one son, for his 12th birthday, we took him to a football game, and he loves football. He's into football, and so he'll remember that forever. Peyton, we took to Disney on Ice. And then we've done big things. So for their 13th birthday, as a transition into teen life, to teach them and to talk to them about all the things that they're going to encounter in really hard years, we do a big excursion. And Noah, when he turned 13, I took him to a Universal Studios and fishing trip. And then Lincoln, when he turned 13, they had a budget. So it wasn't like we blew the bank. They all had the same budget, and they were to find the things that they wanted to do within that budget. And so Lincoln was able to find a trip to Mexico, believe it or not, in his budget, and tickets to a Leafs game. There was lessons in there about proper money management. And then this experience wasn't, and I say this to them all the time, this isn't about the place we're going. Cool, it's fun. But I get guys from my men's group at church to write them letters about things that they wish they knew, things they wish they did, things that they learned that are helpful, and all those kinds of things. So that when the kids can look back, they can see that there's men that love them, that are pouring into them, that they can go to if they need, if I'm not around anymore, if they don't want to talk to me. But it was all about the experience. And so I think there's so many things that we can impact our kids and grandkids for that isn't just about the money and isn't about the thing. The Lego sets that we got our kids when they were really little, they were put together in a couple of days and they sat on the shelf, and now they're all in one bin all together, and nobody can make sense of what they are anymore. And then Christmas, the same thing. It's just intentionality. We do gifts for Christmas, but only 3 gifts based on gold, frankincense, and myrrh, something that they really want, something that is for their body, and something that helps their spiritual journey with Jesus. And yeah, it's just an intentional way of doing things that's not about the things. It's about impressing on them the things that we want to pass on to them that are important.
I like that idea of a legacy letter kind of thing that you are sending to the grandkids or having it available to them on your death so that you can explain, this is what is important to me. This is what I learned the hard way that I hope you don't have to learn, those kinds of things. Would be a good resource to be able to provide to people. Yep.
And if you've done it intentionally, they won't be surprised by any of that stuff because you will already have taught them those things.
Exactly. It'll be a reminder.
It'll just be a documented reminder. Oh yeah, I remember Grandpa Greg said these things all the time, and now it's written. And then now I can, even if I forget the sound of his voice, right, I still have that.
Especially if it's handwritten.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
You're never going to throw that away as a general.
Handwritten notes trump any kind of other.
Exactly.
For sure.
Another thing that seasoned citizens can do is set an example on downsizing, because kids are all about accumulating. And as we get older, we want less and less stuff. right? To cart around with us at the store and things like that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that actually I was just talking to somebody at church yesterday about that, or a couple of days ago about that to achieve what our parents took them 30 to 40 years to achieve in the first 7 years of our marriages or our proper earning life as young adults and adults. And we chased this thing that took our parents forever to achieve. I know my parents did the best they could, but I didn't know what it took them to get to those things and debt that they had or struggles that they had. I just saw we had a decent house, a really nice house. We had a pool and all those kinds of things, but I didn't realize what it took to get those things, right? And how long it actually took them to do that. Or maybe Caitlin and I are a little bit unique in that we don't really like stuff. Like we don't really have anything in our house that doesn't have intention. And there's decorations and stuff like that, but there's no trinkets. If it doesn't have a use or it's not being used, Caitlin gets rid of it. It doesn't stick around long. And that was a necessity when we had the apartment in the basement that we just didn't really have any storage space. So we couldn't keep anything, right? But I think once we understand contentment and what it really takes to be content, we start looking at stuff different. So it's not necessarily that we can't have stuff can be fun, right? But what is that thing doing for me? I like to have a nice decorated house. So it's contributing to that, but I don't need anything more than that. So I don't need to go buy more than that. Do I need to have this house this size? Oh, and we have 4 kids. It seems necessary. Could we get by on less? Probably. But at this stage of our life, we're content with what we're giving up or sacrificing to be able to have this. But when the kids are all left home, do we need this size home? No. Do we need to even own a home? I don't know. Like those are the things that we're going to be able to decide, hopefully before we get to that point, but we'll be able to decide, do we want to live? You and I both have friends that are nomadic. You were nomadic for a little while too. Do we have to live in a brick and mortar home like our parents did? Could we travel around or could we do other things? When we also, for a majority of people, our wealth or equity is held captive by this home that we live in, right? So when we downsize into something that's a little bit more manageable, it takes less time to maintain, it takes less money to maintain. And now where our equity isn't, or our wealth isn't tied up in a thing, what can we do with this equity? Can we make different investments? Can we, enjoy life in a different way than we were before? There's just different options. So it's definitely worth considering and looking into. And I think a lot of reasons why people don't look into those things is they're afraid of being told that I have to do this. And we don't ever want to get to a point where it's like, you have to downsize because you can't afford life anymore, or you're in so much debt, you have to sell that house. We want to be able to have choices and really go into the next phase.
That's a very good point. How much money do seasoned citizens really need to live on? I know it all depends on their lifestyle and what they want to do. Is there a set amount that you as a financial advisor are recommending that they have before they even consider retirement? Or in the case of people who have to start over, is there a way they can have hope by developing some sort of residual or recurring income in like a business?
So just to start, we're financial coaches. We're not advisors.
That's
so they're
right.
a little bit different. And it's a nuance. And still, we just look at different things, right? So there's definitely space for both at the table. Absolutely. But I think if you Googled or did any kind of reading, you'd find all sorts of people that have advice on different numbers that are necessary. But your situation, different than my situation, my choices, different than your choices. Right. You're right. It would absolutely depend. And I think we can start looking at where you currently are and then the life that you want to have. Life would look, or the amount of money would look a lot different for you if you had a mortgage going into retirement or a car loan or credit card debt or whatever, student debt even. I know that some people still have, but if you have those debts going into retirement, that your income or the amount of money that you need is going to look a lot different than if I go into retirement, whatever that looks like, with no debt. I'm downsizing, so I even have more cash and I have a paid off home and I don't really want to travel or whatever. So it does depend, but we start looking at where you currently are. We talk about where you want to go and why. We start looking at the why, and we have a great resource that your people can download for free, the Why Discovery Guide. And that kind of looks at just a measuring stick of what decisions you're making and why you're making those decisions and are they getting you closer to your goals or not. and then look at your spending currently and tying up any loose ends in there, making that more efficient, and not saying no, but just opportunity costs. There's opportunity costs for everything. Whether you're young, my age, older, whatever, there's opportunity costs for everything. Whether that's money or time or some kind of sacrifice, there's an opportunity cost. And we start looking at those and then making priorities. What do you want to do and how important to you is that? And then let's go get it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that you might be able to do that if you have a pension. You might be able to do that within the pension, not have to go to a proper job. Could you have your own business? Our friend Vincent Puglisi talks about creating income in a membership economy. Could you go work at Home Depot? Do you have to work at Home Depot, or do you just want to pass along you were in construction and you love passing on your knowledge and stuff like that to the younger people like me that less than you do?
Exactly.
And be a help, right?
That's right.
So there's lots of different options. So no, I don't think there's a specific number.
Some people are in trouble though, because they expected life to go in a certain direction and they were preparing for that. And then life stepped in and made a change that was devastating to them financially. I know a woman who is just in her early 60s who is in the process of being forced out of a job when she had planned on working until she was 67 and a half. And now what is she going to do? Because she can't collect her pension early, or if she does, then it changes everything for her later in life. How do we give people hope like that, that it's not devastating, that it can be difficult, but it will not be devastating?
I think it's super important to not come in with answers, solutions. And I'm more like that a lot of times. I don't know if it's because I was a firefighter for 21 years and so you need a solution to a problem right away. But it's important, I think, to listen for sure and as the person experiencing the thing, to be able to grieve and be given the space to grieve that thing. But it's equally as important not to stay stuck in that either, because we can stay stuck in it and then that controls us. We experience the thing that we don't want to ever experience, which is being controlled, right? Mm-hmm. The thing that we're so afraid of is really being controlled, I think, in a lot of ways. And so this situation that your friend is experiencing, now she had a certain plan and now it's not that anymore.
It could be a divorce,
It could be a divorce. It could be the loss of a spouse. It could be a major illness that you're now experiencing, and now you have bills or inability to go to work anymore and those kinds of things. I think it would be really awesome if you were so inclined to mentally and crack. But I think there's also people that get so wrapped up in the what ifs that paralyzes them too. But I think that if you find yourself in a position that seems hopeless, one, to have people around you that will be there to listen to you, but also that you can trust enough to not leave you there, and to encourage you to be able to come out of that, whatever hole you feel like you find yourself in, that there is hope, that this thing that happened is not the end of the sun does actually come up in the morning. And I know that doesn't necessarily help in the minute, in the moment, but there are options, and it could look like a lot of different things. Maybe, like I said at the beginning, the expectations that you have, maybe those need to die. Maybe those weren't the path that you were meant to go on. And maybe this roadblock or this thing that's happened makes something else possible. Maybe that's overly optimistic, especially if you find yourself in a dire spot right now. But if you can give yourself freedom to grieve and then be able to start, as time goes on, start to look up and see what's around you and just seeing what options that this opens up to, that can help.
I agree. There's always options. And so that's the importance of having good advisors and counselors and coaches around you, because you're too close to a situation, so you don't see a way out. But after talking with somebody, I know it's worked in my life, they say, have you ever considered this? And that path that was completely hidden from me was exactly the one that was needed at that particular time. So get the advice. Don't dwell on the past or the hopelessness, because there are always options.
And that's what I love, Caitlin and I doing this together. We're built very differently. Caitlin is very much numbers, efficiencies. She like incredible things that I can never see. And if I was doing this on my own, I think I would fail miserably. But I'm able to help a lot on those emotional things and see the visionary stuff. And then Caitlin and I are able then to work together to make a plan on how to help you do those things. You got to do it, but just help you to see that there are options and that there is hope when you're able to see that. But yeah, we have so many blind spots. I have so many blind spots. Caitlin's really good at showing me, not pointing out my blind spots, but she's really good at showing me the things that I can't see. And it just makes me a better person. So I think just like that in coaching, when we have good friends or we have good advisors or coaches around us that can help us see things that we can't see ourselves, it just changes the game.
I think another question that seasoned citizens often have is, do I give money to my heirs now, or do I save the money because I might need it later? And I can see the benefit and the advantages to both, because without provision, there is no vision, right? So if you don't have the provision for your life, you can't think of anything else. But same with the kids, with the youngsters. If there's no provision, they can't envision a better future for them. So do you give the money now and help them use it and invest it, spend it, and enjoy watching them do it? Or is there the fear of giving the money now and they turn into the prodigal son and go off and waste it and then have nothing in a couple of years?
I think at the level of column A and a little column B, I think that that absolutely we can't, there's a reason they tell you on an airplane to put your mask on first and then help the people within your arm's reach. The Bible tells us to give out of our excess. And that's not to say that we can't give otherwise, but we can't take care of our own immediate needs. And there's part to that too, where we have to think about what's an actual need and what's a want, and then the opportunity cost of the things that we want. Is that worth, if your goal is to give to your kids or your grandkids, is it worth doing without that thing so that I can give to some kind of inheritance to my kids, grandkids? But all of that, I think, is lost if we haven't taught them how to handle it. Like we talked about before, it could be as big of a curse to give them a bunch if we haven't taught them how to handle it properly. And then the heart of it, do I want to give money to my kids or grandkids so that I can control them with it? Is there strings attached?
Yeah, there you go. That's an important.
Is there strings attached to it? Am I going to, now that I've given it to them, am I going to tell them what to do with it? Have I given it to them freely and trust that I've taught them well so that they can go on and do the things, and I've taught them so that they can teach their kids how to generationally do well or do better, and they're going to teach their kids, and they're going to, when we talk about the generational wealth or generational giving or what we're passing on to future generations, even if it's not about money, did I teach them well why they're doing what they're doing so that it continues on to future generations? And at some point that will stop, because unless you've taught them well and everybody passes it on well throughout, at some point that translational loss will be lost. There's a reason that generational wealth stops. Often the first generation works their tails off to accumulate the wealth. The second generation gets the benefit of that, sees a little bit about what it took, but the third generation is so far removed that the story kind of stops somewhere in between there. So that's why it's so important to continue that story and why this has all happened and what it took to get there, and just not be given a free ride. Often, if you're going to give something to your kids and you've taught them well, or your grandkids, you might not give it to them until they might not even need it, right? Mm-hmm. So if your kids are relying on you for your inheritance, maybe you haven't taught them well enough yet anyways. But the other thing is too, I think that, and Dave Ramsey's harsh on this, but I don't necessarily, I don't not agree with it. I think you have to watch what your kids do. If your kids are making bad decisions, or your grandkids are making bad decisions with the money or the life that they currently, anything I give them financially is going to make that worse.
That's a good point. I like Warren Buffett's approach, where he said that he wanted to leave enough money for his kids to be able to do anything, but not so much that they could do nothing.
That's right. Yeah, because if we have so much that we can do nothing, then it's defeated the whole purpose of it. And even if we had enough to do nothing, if we've given them, I think, the lessons and the ability to see that this is not for me, but for me to manage well, to pass on to somebody else. So yeah, we can give it to them after we pass and then hope for the best. We can give it to them before we pass and watch the enjoyment of it and watch what they do with it, hopefully without the strings and without the guilt and those kinds of things. But even before that, I think is important to teach them how to manage that if it ever does come.
I understand you have a free resource available for the listeners of the Forward from 50 podcast, the Why Discovery Guide. Tell us about it. You had mentioned it before, but tell us a little bit about it again and how people can get it.
What we found with people when they wanted to do things and weren't able to do those things they wanted to do was they didn't have a strong enough why. So what they were doing, I talk about the leaky garden hose all the time. If you ever come into coaching or if you ever, I've even doing on my social posts, stuff like that, I talk about a leaky garden hose, and there's nothing worse than having full pressure coming out of your nozzle and then you start poking holes in the hose and then you have no pressure at the end of the nozzle. And our lives or our money and our lives can be a lot like that, where we start doing, like we have the possibility or the potential of a lot of pressure at the end and forward motion to get to the thing that we want. But then we start, I'm going to buy this car. And then I'm going to go on this vacation. And then I'm going to buy this thing on credit. And then and it just, all your cash flow, it's gone. And you have no pressure to get to the thing that you want. And we don't know why. We get so frustrated by it and angry about it and eventually get into a place where it's just, I can do nothing about it. So we developed this Why Discovery Guide to help people figure out, because all of our lives experiences help us or can help us to determine where we want to go and what's important to us. When we look at experiences, we look at the things we're afraid of. We look at the things that bring us joy or bring us happiness. We look at all sorts of things that are core values, why we feel and think the way we do. And working through this document just helps give a more on-purpose, intentional approach to getting to the thing that we want. And then you can use that as a measuring stick to make decisions and choices. You wanted to do a certain thing and you have a decision to make. Does this decision get me closer to that goal or does it take me further away? And you can choose to take yourself further away. That's okay if there's a reason for it. But then you're not just making decisions willy-nilly all over the place and not getting to the place you want to go. So this document helps you get on paper, on purpose, intentionally, what you want, why you want it. And then every decision after that, you just measure it up against that. It'd just be like going to coaching. Greg, you told me that this is what you want, but that decision doesn't seem like it's lining up with that. Is that really what you want to do? And then we would talk about this. So that document just does a similar thing.
And how can people get it?
We're going to give you a link for the free download, and they can just click on that link and go in and download the document there.
That's good.
And if you've forgotten where the link is I don't know if you do show notes or whatever, but if you've forgotten where that is, you can always go to our website, bromleyfinancialcoaching.com, and under the free resources, there's a bunch of other ones there too, but the Why Discovery Guide is in there as well.
Super. And the other thing we wanted to remind people is the Financially Thriving Group is something that people who have a passion for helping others avoid financial mistakes, recover from financial mistakes, whatever, that they can subscribe or join this group and share it with their own church, their neighborhood, their families even, correct?
Absolutely. So we started teaching, I can't remember if I mentioned it or not, we started teaching a financial small group at our church. And we thought we can do this in person and ourselves, but then it's contained to our church. And this, I think, needs to get out to lots of different people. So what we did was we created an online virtual program that can be used in person, but it can also be used online. So no matter where you are in the world, as long as you have an internet connection, you can run this program or experience this program. It can also be done by yourself, just DIY. So if you were a person that thought biblical financial principles specifically, were important to pass along to people in your church or your family, this is something that you could sign up for and lead in your church. You don't need to be a financial expert. It's all done for you. There's a facilitator guide and everything. And if you don't know the answers to questions, we're always available to answer those questions through an online portal that you would have access to and your participants would have access to. But it gives a baseline of what Jesus in the Bible talks about money, and to be able to make better financial decisions going forward. And so, like I said, you can do that in your church, but it can even be for your family too, and for yourself. So if you didn't have that solid foundation, this can be something that contributes to that solid foundation for yourself, no matter where you're starting from as a youngster or as a seasoned citizen. And then something that you can also work through with your family or give as a gift to your family as well. There's lots of different options. We'll have a link for you for that as well. And that can be found on our website as well, bromleyfinancial.coaching.com. And in the services section, I believe, you can go and find the biblically based financial wellness there. It's all in there for you.
So people can connect with you on that website as well. But are you actively involved in any social media?
Yeah, we do Bromley Coaching on Instagram. I have Facebook, and so you can join me there. I love talking about all things money and our family and all sorts of things that Greg's seen a bunch of it. I try to be as valuable on there as I can. And then LinkedIn, I'm not active currently, but looking to get into that a little bit more again. But yeah, Facebook, our website, Instagram, we're on. So those are different options there.
Super. Thank you very much for sharing this advice. It's very helpful, and I hope it's encouraging others to think about what kind of financial legacy they would like to leave to their grandkids. And it does not necessarily have to be money. If you don't have the money, it can be good habits that will ensure that they get money or keep the money that they earn.
Well said, Greg. I just appreciate you inviting me on and trusting me with your people, and hopefully they found a whole bunch of value. And again, anytime that they have any questions, they're more than welcome to reach out to Caitlin or myself.
I enjoyed talking with Joel Bromley, the co-founder of Bromley Financial Coaching. He offered some practical advice for seasoned citizens who are interested in leaving a financial legacy to their families. Joel also had some good advice about what to do when seasoned citizens find themselves in a precarious situation after having to start over later in life due to divorce, illness, or unexpected job loss. I liked how Joel caught the attention of his 9-year-old daughter by explaining the impact of compounding interest in a way that she could understand. Now that she knows what's possible, she can begin to structure her saving and spending habits to achieve the things most kids never will. And that's the type of legacy grandparents can still have. Good financial strategies are not taught in school. If they are, it's often taught at ages before kids start earning money or have the ability to make financial decisions. Rather than giving a big gift as an inheritance, Joel suggested putting $2,000 into an account on the day a child is born. Then, as the child gets older, the parents and grandparents can monitor its growth with the child and even talk about ways to invest it so the kids can see it grow. Joel is also a big advocate for grandparents funding experiences for their children and grandchildren instead of buying trinkets that will have no long-term impact or will likely even be remembered. For people who may be struggling financially in their older years, Joel said the key is to get sound advice early. A coach can help identify things that may be causing money to drain out and suggest steps to shore up finances. People over 50 in tough financial situations may not be able to do everything they hope they'd be able to do at that stage in life. However, their financial condition is not likely as bleak as they imagine. It takes guts to talk about your financial situation with others, but it's better to do so early so that changes can be made rather than having few options later. Many seasoned citizens struggle with whether to give money while they're still alive so they can enjoy watching their heirs use it, or saving it in case that's needed later. Joel addressed that concern and asked the key question: are you giving money with strings attached? A noted generational wealth evaporates over time. The first generation works hard to achieve it, and their children know what it took to accumulate it. But the third generation, and certainly by the fourth, the heirs have no idea where the money came from, and as a result, they have less incentive to use it wisely. If children and grandchildren are making bad financial situations now, then giving them more money only compounds that problem. Joel created a free discovery guide to help seasoned citizens better understand the why behind their financial legacy. That can be downloaded at www.bromleyfinancialcoaching.com. There are also links on that site to connect with Joel or his wife Caitlin to get advice. That's all I have for this week's show. We'll have another fun interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. If you like these interviews, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes. Thanks for listening.